when we have our actually our weekly meetings every Friday, these are the things that we discuss, because again, we know we have an old system. We know we're going to have these problems until we have our new system up and running. So we always have these contingency plans worked out.
But you're saying even with the backup system there were issues?
There were some challenges with even the backup system. We have several plans. We have plan A, B, C, D, and E, because again, it's an old system. And so we were able to rely on our other backup plans.
What's a backup system? You mean like alternate radios or?
Well, and that's why I said
Sometimes.
alternate radios, and that's why I said I really would prefer that, I want to get you the specifics on that, and that's more of a technical question for IT.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, how quickly are you guys going to go to city council with the parcel tax?
I'm going to go to the next regular meeting, so it doesn't require 6 votes. That's just regular meetings, no special notification. That's why I say it's probably going to push it back a month, which means that when we do the budget and we pass the budget, I'll do 2 versions. One, this is what will happen if it passes. This is what will happen if it doesn't pass. But it means that because now I can't get the results by July 5th, I'll probably be either at the end of the month or even at the beginning of August. I don't know. I haven't talked to the county registrar yet on this. But we don't want any, I thought it was an urgency. I thought it was a valid urgency because of this. But what it means is that even if it passes, there'll probably be a month of people being laid off or services cut.
And were you surprised? What was your reaction when they ultimately decided not to go forward?
We'd gotten different information. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. I should be prepared for anything. I don't want to get in. Basically, what I'm trying to do is get us through a very tough time where I think everybody's going to have to chip in with the least amount of pain and harm to people. I don't know how many of you covered the North Oakland town hall meeting. There were about 200 seniors there. I had seniors with tears in their eyes because they were worried that they'd lose their senior centers. These cuts are going to be pretty painful. It really means a lot to people's lives. So that's why I'm saying a lot of time with the county to say, even if we were to have to close some of our senior centers some days, can we get a backup so that we get their free meals to them every day? There's a lot of things that you won't even see in the budget where we're going to try to back each other up so that the people who are the most vulnerable in this city will suffer the least, or as least that we can make it.
In terms of your first 100 days, I've been talking to people about their thoughts on how you're doing your first 100 days. And talking to Councilman Del Fuente, who's maybe not, he said he thinks he's concerned about your leadership style, that you aren't. He believes that you're afraid to make the tough decisions. And one example is the budget, leaving it up to council to make the tough decisions instead of making your own specific recommendations. So how would you respond?
I would say that's probably not very fair. And I think that I got the council data earlier than anyone. I was the chair of the finance committee. I would have loved to have had these kinds of numbers in March rather than waiting till May. There is no doubt that I'll have a very clear budget by the end of April. But I think I agreed to be a more transparent and more open mayor and try to get more feedback earlier. And Mr. Del Fuente was also famously quoted about a year ago when Ron Dellums waited so long saying that one man can't do the budget, that he needed to work with us and to give more information to us. So he can't have it both ways. Here I am, besting my staff's time and working probably every night really late and working weekends to get early data to the council. And to be fair to my staff, it's more data earlier than the entire time I've been in city government on a budget. Now, I've given them clear options because I need to hear some things. So clearly, if I'm making a budget that cuts $80 million and not $46 million, I just need to know from them. If they're not going to go ahead and extend the PFERS, I need to know that because that's a very different dramatic thing. Could almost probably turn off the lights. But I need to know. I've sent it to committee in January. They haven't made a decision on that. But I've been pretty clear. After the retreat on April 11th, we will then go and have a line-by-line budget ready by the end of the month, and that will still be earlier than past mayors.
But just to follow up on that, leaving the budget aside, Do you think are you capable of making tough decisions as opposed to trying to please all the constituents in the city?
Am I capable of pleasing all the constituents? Say no.
Are you
No.
willing-
Am I
That's-
willing to make?
That's the,
You know,
that's part two of this.
Jeff, if you're
criticism
talking
that-
about political courage, I gave up my consul seat to run for mayor in a race that nobody thought I'd win. So I think I have enough political courage and have been often the single votes on tough issues. So I don't know. Do you ask guys this question if we're tough enough? I think I'm tough enough. Yes.
I'd like to ask you a couple of different questions. One about Novella Carpenter, the urban farmer. Do you think that the way the city is handling the permit process is a good one?
I don't know. When I read about it over the furlough days, I actually asked somebody who was on furlough to go talk to her. It's clear that if she's going to raise animals, kill them, and sell them, she needs a business license. The people and the staff that's involved claim they did not say the things to her that she said. She said, I actually don't care. I think we're sort of caught in a situation where there are neighbors who don't like the fact that she raises animals and kills them in her yard. We have a bigger issue here. There's a bigger issue. This is a city that does a lot of urban agriculture. Like I have neighbors in the Glenview that have chickens. I grew up in a household that had chickens. I've got households on Skyline that have goats, pigs, all sorts of wild and livestock. This is an interesting city. We're working on codes that allow people to have more urban agriculture, and I think we work on that. I embrace it. I encourage it. I encourage community gardens. I encourage a lot of this stuff. So we're going to work on it. Even so, as far as I know, is the staff who worked with him. I want to thank Arturo Sanchez for taking off his weekend and going and talking to her and meeting with her to work on it. We're working with helping her to get the appropriate licenses, but this is not just the city versus her. It's apparently neighbors who have made complaints, so it's more complex than either the media or she has described it as being.
And my other question had to do with ranked choice voting. San Francisco, this will be the first time for the mayor's race that they are going to be using that system. I'm wondering what you would tell to the candidates. They've got about a dozen who are serious in the mayor's race this time around.
They're all trying to talk to me. What I've told people is, what I learned is build coalitions and ask for people's number 2 and 3 votes. You know, that's what I did. That's how I won. I think it will be very interesting. I know that the Chinese community is particularly excited because the Chinese represent about 30 to 40% of the vote, and they've never had a Chinese mayor in that city, even though they're a very large part of the population. And they have 3 pretty strong candidates. So there's a good chance that they'll have their first directly elected Chinese American mayor if one of those candidates can also make coalitions with another significant bloc, like the gay community or the progressive community or the labor community. And that's the nice thing about ranked choice voting. When it's winner take all on just who comes in first, you don't necessarily get a more representative population. I was a student at Cal. Cal uses proportional representation, which is very similar. It was after that the first Asian Americans got elected to the campus senate. It was the first time that a lot of minority and progressive students sort of broke the block of the frat row on UC politics, right? So it is a process that allows people, I think, to be heard who are both minority groups and groups that sometimes get their votes split up, right? So the reality in my race, Rebecca Kaplan and I split the progressive and women's vote because of ranked choice voting. Those voters could come back together and win. Mata.
A question on PFERS. Your feeling is that the payment would have to come out of the general fund?
What?
On PFERS, you're saying you need to know whether the deficit is going to be
Well, where else would it come out of?
the override.
Huh?
The override.
Well, the override would only last for a year and a half, maybe at the most. And I have to do a 2-year budget.
Okay.
So were they to do the override, they would have to do, I think it will become 40 million after I have a new actuarial study done. It'll be less than 45. I think it'll be closer to higher 30s, low 40s. But the reality is if you reuse all the cash and not bond on it to extend it out, if you use it all now, it would pay, yes, for the first year, and it would pay for a little bit of the second year, but I'd have to probably, I don't know, depending on what the eventual amount gets to be after the actual study, I'd have to add $30 million worth of cuts into year 2, the 2-year budget, and then $40 million a year after that. So yeah, it makes a big difference whether they extend it out and bond off of the money rather than using it just to make one payment.
Mayor Quan, you talked about things that you were proud of. What are the things that you were disappointed in mostly your first 100 days?
Bureaucracies are slow to move, and you know, I thought I'd had a city manager, a permanent one, about a month ago, and then at the last moment, his city made a tremendously big bid, and I lost that candidate. So yeah, I would have liked to have a more a city administrator going forward for the next 4 years, right? On the other hand, I'm immensely grateful that Lamont Yule's here. He's very experienced. Everybody that's worked with him, even just the last few days, just is sighing a breath of relief. This is somebody who's been in this tough position before, with San Diego and other cities, and who is just immensely knowledgeable and calm, a very calming voice in face of a very tough budget. Sean. Oh, I thought I saw you. Ma'am.
Mayor, would you please talk about your trip to China?
I trip to China, okay. Many of you know, and trust me, if it weren't for the big investments in China in the middle of the budget, I would not leave. I will be leaving probably in the second week of May for a 3-city stop in China to visit quite frankly, two major Chinese investment groups, one in Beijing and one in Shenzhen. And then I promised to go to the Hong Kong bar of East Bay Wineries in Hong Kong. Where there's a consortium of East Bay wineries who have opened up a bar in Hong Kong to sell our wines. So I promised to make a stop and go by their bar. It's a very interesting thing that the Chinese have developed a huge taste for red wines. They see Hong Kong as sort of the place where people will come and shop for them. So a group of Oakland and East Bay wineries have pulled together their money and have opened up this place in Hong Kong to showcase their red wines. And it's similar to what we hope to do at the May 15th, is it May 15th or April 15th? April 15th, I'm sorry, it's next week. Next week we're having a Northern California-wide meeting of elected officials. I've invited mayors from all over Northern California and businesses to talk about how we can better organize our exports so we're competitive. Like France, for instance, is very well organized on exporting its wines. We in California are not. So we're going to be talking about those strategies. Oakland right now, last month, actually exported more than we imported. And that was the first time in a month where we had more exports and imports. It's partly the down economy and us buying less from China, but it's also that we've been increasing mostly our agricultural and small equipment, electronic sales to Asia. So it's a very, very important part of our economy. So yeah, I'll be gone for a little less than 6 days. I will do my briefing from wherever I am on Tuesday, and I think that will be Shenzhen, or Thursday. Wherever I am on Thursday, I'll be doing my briefing from there. And no, I take that back. It won't be Shenzhen, it'll be Beijing. And we will try to do our best to encourage investments in Oakland. Other questions?
I've got two. One, on the council retreat next week, who specifically made the decision to do it at Joaquin Miller?
Huh?
Who made the decision to actually do it at Joaquin Miller?
We asked the president if he wanted to do it in formal atmosphere the way we'd done in the past, and he agreed to do it.
Okay. And then the second thing is on garbage RFP. What's the garbage RFP?
You'll know next week. All right. Thank you very much. I'll be willing to be here informally. Lewis Cohen School Initiative, Sharon Kroner, the legislation in Sacramento, and I'll answer any other questions. Thank you.